What's good? Back with another video, and I'm reacting. Americans are being lied to. We going back to Richard Wolff, man. The father of understanding socialism, communism. This man can explain it down to a T. Definitely love his ideas, and I don't want to waste no time, y'all. But I need y'all to subscribe. Right? But I don't want to waste no time. So hop right into the video.
Individualism, for me, is not the way it's set up in this society, some sort of antithesis to the government. I think an immense con has been pulled on the American people. And the con works like this. You know what's bad and what's dangerous and threatens you? It's the government. The government's going to come in and tell you what to do. The government's going to run your life. The government's the problem. There really is no other way to explain the following in American politics. Large numbers of people lose their homes.
The government is the problem. The government is just as much the problem as the wealthy elites that tried to keep things bad for everybody else. But let's keep going. I just wanted to add that in.
In a downturn like the so-called Great Recession of 2008, who do they blame? The government.
Yeah.
Large numbers of people go unemployed. And what is the media all about? The government. If I were a capitalist, I'd love this. I kick the workers by throwing them out of their home, and they don't get angry at me. They get angry at the government. I fire large numbers of people. I have no responsibility for what happens to them as a result of having no job and no income. And they get angry at the senator.
That's facts. That is stupid. When you really think about it, who fired you? Who moved the job to Mexico? It was the person that owned the job. Who fired you from the job? The person that owned the job. Who caused the 2008 crisis? Faulty bank loans that were being given out to people who didn't understand how banks and money like that worked, and they knew what they were doing. They were targeting people that purposely didn't understand. Giving out subprime mortgage loans to anybody with the pulse and then pass them off as AAA rate securities. So they were actually giving them to investors too. So investors didn't even understand. People who are actually invest their money and know what they're doing with their money didn't even understand that what they were dealing with dog shit. And who do people blame? They blame Obama. They blame Bush. They kind of didn't have anything to do. Now, did they bail them out? Yeah, but they didn't have anything to do with why it happened. It was people who. And I don't want to say capitalists, but it was people who had most of the money in the economy at the time. That's facts.
I'm laughing all the way to the bank.
Man.
This is a genius stroke.
In theory, but if you look at government, because you said accountability, and the capitalist system has no accountability. There's some pushback I give on the accountability. I think there is some accountability we can discuss in a Hegelian way. There's more accountability for. I would say that in theory, government is perfectly accountable. That's the whole point of a democratic system, is you vote people in. In practice, there's a giant growing bureaucracy that is accountable only on the surface. There's two parties that seem to are the same. Media is somehow integrated into making the same two parties that are just wearing different colored shirts to seem like they're very opposed and are arguing and bitterly calling each other's spouses and these nasty names and all those kinds of things. Okay, but that's government. So who exactly is worse here? Government or companies?
Well, why are we asking that question? These are twins. Look, what you were able to say about Republicans and Democrats just now, with which I agree.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing about corporations and the government. This is the same people, literally.
But let's go to Churchill. Which one is worse? Let's go to Churchill. Democracy is the worst form of government, except all the other ones or whatever. So this kind of same idea. Which one exactly is worse? Because to me, it seems like
which one between what and what?
Government and industry and companies. It's because government is plagued by, I would call it corruption, because the corruption of bureaucratic paperwork, and then but they're not accountable. There doesn't seem to be a serious accountability.
Again, we're not living on the same planet. The greatest practitioners of central planning are corporations.
Oh my God, man, he's killing it right now, man. And I understand his question. He's trying to say, who is worse, the government or the industry, right? So let's see. What does Richard Wolff think about that question? I wonder if he's going to answer it. Who's worse? That's a good question. Who's worse, the government or the industry? Because I will say that more people have been alive in the name of big government than anything else in history. However, though, more people have been displaced by capitalist greed. So, unalived is still a lot worse. And capitalist greed isn't good either. And sometimes capitalist greed can lead to war. Let's see.
Elon has an operation like General Motors, Ford, IBM, or any of the other megacorps. They have to plan. They buy up companies because they don't want to deal in the market. They don't want the insecurity, the uncertainty of having to buy their inputs or sell their outputs to somebody they don't control. They want the professor to teach the genius of a market. They hate the market. And when they grow to be big, they keep buying whoever they were dealing with before so they could better control them, which requires them then to plan the production and distribution of goods inside rather than buying them in the market. The model of the government is a private corporation. I have spent my life, give you an example, in American universities, big ones, famous ones, not just as a student, but as a professor. I've been half a dozen school. I teach now at the new school here. It's another one, right? They all model themselves after businesses. They model their... You can attack the bureaucracy of universities, good reason, it's a mess, but they're proudly modeling themselves on organizing their bureaucracy in a business-like manner. So you're looking at a difference which isn't there. The government and the private sector are partners, and both of them wouldn't have it any other way. The corporations want that from the government, and the government now knows that to please the corporations is the number one objective they have, because that's how they keep their jobs and keep their system going. And so, for all practical purposes, this is the same people.
But there's important differences that I don't know if they're fundamental or just a consequence of history. But if you have government, they're accountable in a different way than companies. Companies are accountable by, especially if you have a consumer, they're accountable by sort of the consumer spending or not spending their money on whatever the heck the company is selling. The government is accountable by votes. And it seems like government, unlike companies, for most of companies' history, is always too big to fail, meaning it can always just print money. It can always save itself, and that creates a bureaucracy. You rarely pay the cost of having made bad decisions if you're in government. You distribute the blame, and it's very unclear who's responsible for bad decisions, so bad decisions in government accumulate. So you become more and more and more inefficient and more poor in your decision making in terms of, you said public transit. Should we build a public transit system in this city or not? That's a difficult decision. That's an interesting decision.
Well, let me just talk to the first part, like one part of his point. He said government is really never held accountable. They're only held accountable by votes, right? But are capitalists held accountable either, though? In 2008, when all that stuff happened, who was really held accountable? They added this stress test into businesses, but people still got bonuses. People were laid off. People lost their homes. People lost a lot of things, and the capitalists were never really held accountable either. It's actually truly hard to own a billionaire accountable when a billionaire owns most of the things that are going on in America. How can you truly hold Jeff Bezos accountable? How can you truly do that? When he funds half of the jobs that are across America, how could you truly own Elon? How can you truly hold Elon Musk accountable. Like what like it's the same question you can fire back at the billionaires and the millionaires. Well, the billionaires that control everything, right? But at the same time, though, I do think government can be worse because he's right. Government can continuously print money to save itself when it messes things up. Let's keep going.
I would say it's very often a very good decision, but whoever makes that decision should be accountable for a good or bad decision. And it seems like companies are more accountable. They feel the pain of having made a bad decision more because they can go bankrupt. There's much more day-to-day pressure to make good engineering decisions. Government doesn't seem to be under the same level of pressure. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that. Everything in my history pushes me.
I may be living in a different
Who knows?
a planet, or taking a different sort of drug.
I won't mention the name, but I personally had a lot to do with a very large company here in the United States, here in the New York area, and it involved two brothers and a family who built it up into a huge corporation. One of the brothers was kind of the dynamo of the family, and he was more responsible than anybody else building it up. But he took care of his brothers. He had a nice feeling about his brothers. So the one brother who could not, without help, tie his shoes, became a vice president. Got an enormous salary. Got a beautiful office in a skyscraper, not that many blocks from where I'm sitting right now. And that was the way that family handled that company. And all of his relatives were somewhere in this company doing a variety of whatever. And my experience with this, and because I went to the schools I told you, all my experiences with that group of people, corporate exec, full of those stories. They made mistake after mistake, which they would tell you about. Didn't undermine they were always able to blame somebody else, something else that scraped them through. And had they not been able to, they would have been replaced by another person who did the same thing for as long as they could. And they knew it. They would talk about it at family events. That's how I know.
Yeah,
I understand.
So in Richard Wolff's opinion, no one is held accountable. No one, like capitalists ain't held accountable. Neither is the government. No one is held accountable. Definitely interesting take.
And that you want the outside world to look at it this way, but it's not my experience.
Interesting, but again, what's that kind of thing? At the risk of saying human nature again, I wonder what kind of system allows for that more versus less. This is the question of. I would call that. Let's put that under the umbrella term of corruption. Which system allows for more corruption?
But remember that the way I define the different system is not more or less government. It's more or less allowing a democratic workplace.
Yeah.
Reconfiguring it. What happens when everybody has a vote? When you have to explain what the strategies are, what the alternatives are to a larger number of people than a board of directors or a major shareholders or whoever it is that most companies are responsible to. And now you've got a whole different universe. It's not a small group of people. Can't be hidden the way it's normally hidden. Most of it, and on and on and on. This is, worker co-ops is what this is called in many parts of the world. So it's not that I'm advocating something that's never been seen before. Not at all. The Marxism I understand is to pick from historical precedents the things that we think will work better. And I think if all the people in an enterprise, just to drive the point home, democratically decided, they would never give 2 or 3 individuals $100 million while everybody else can't send their kid to college. I mean,
That's a fact.
Do that.
That's a fact. That's a good point. Like if everybody had the choice democratically to choose how it went in a corporation, everybody would make a decision for it be fair to everybody. Whoever takes on the most responsibility should definitely have more, but at the same time, millions upon millions of dollars where people are barely making $20,000 to $30,000 a year is crazy. Definitely crazy. But yes, y'all, that was good, man. Richard Wolff is always killing it, man. I love watching. I love doing reactions to him, man. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comment section. He's definitely a very intelligent man. I still stand with the capitalists because I'm a capitalist right now. I don't fully see how socialism would work. At the same time, though, I understand completely. I've worked jobs where I've worked with terrible fucking managers, man. I've worked jobs where I've worked with some extremely horrible people, and some democracy should be added into the workplace, definitely. But yeah, that's it, y'all. Y'all have a good one.